your bees.
Welcome, Martin. Associate Professor Martin Benchick from Nottingham Trent University. You're no stranger to the National Honey Show. I believe you've been there, you've given a paper once, which I saw, and also your colleague Michael Ramsey gave one of the Beecraft lectures a couple of years ago. So thank you very much for joining us in our contribution to the virtual National Honey Show of 2020.
Thank you. I am delighted to have yet another contribution to this wonderful show. And it's not only a honey show. I know you also have lectures and seminars, and it is yet another wonderful event that contributes to show the wonderful story about the honeybee. And I am delighted to be yet again invited to contribute.
Thank you, Martin. We have covered your work on three or four articles in Beecraft. Fascinating work about vibrations of honeybees. Can you tell us what got you into this? What started you off on this track, and how did it relate to research that you were already doing?
Yes, certainly. It is probably quite an unexpected story. It is to do with the university closing down civil engineering back in 2005. And civil engineers are using accelerometers. They assess the vibrations in bridges and other structures of interest to civil engineers. And when the department closed down, a lecturer rang me up because he found that accelerometers were to be found in a skip on campus. And he said, would you like to recover these accelerometers? And I was delighted to, and I rushed in a car. We went there, recovered numerous accelerometers, the best in the world, made in Denmark, together with the electronics associated with them. And having this equipment in my laboratory, I then had the idea to use them onto a honeybee hive. And in those days, I did it with bees owned by my dad in France. So this was my first pilot experiment, and this is how I got into it. And as to how it blends into my research, I am very fortunate to have done quite a few years of research with Professor Richard Botel, Professor Peter Mansfield, and Professor Roger Bowley at the University of Nottingham. And these three characters had this extraordinary aptitude to be tremendously excited with new ideas for which they saw potential. So I have been trained by these three amazing scientists with the effervescence, with the excitement of trying things that had never been tried before. And I think this is how I've been led with my interest into measuring vibrations in honeybees.
So, I always like it when we hear about these crossover of different researches, because it always seems to be extremely productive. And in your latest paper, which we summarized in Beecraft after an interview with you, you found something out about the clues to swarming, that there's a bit of vibration activity going on with bees that will maybe give a clue to as to when swarming might happen. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. So I think an interesting, perhaps the most interesting novelty in our work is to do with measurements that are done once or several times onto a body. So for instance, many years ago, your doctor would assess your blood pressure once, and he would give you some feedback about your status according to one blood pressure measurement taken on you. This is not done anymore at all. We now know that your blood pressure goes up and down in the day, and taking one measurement in the day is not a good indicator of your health status. What we now know is that you need multiple measurements on someone's blood pressure in order to have a vision onto their status of their cardiovascular system. So I think the main message we have been trying to convey in our latest publication on the swarming, the prediction of swarming of bees, is very, very similar. We think that a single measurement of the vibrations and sound coming from a honeybee hive is a poor indicator of whether they are preparing to swarm or not, because the sound and vibrations in a honeybee colony vary tremendously across the day. What we have shown, however, is if you take multiple measurements, in our case, we suggest to do it over 10 days, then you do have a very strong indicator of the status of the colony, in particular with regards to whether they are preparing for swarming or not. So I think this is the message we are conveying, and this is we have found single measurements are not a good indicator. You want to do multiple measurements, perhaps for a week, perhaps for 10 days.
Fascinating. We look forward to see how this research progresses and whether one day beekeepers might be able to sit at home and think, they're going to be swarming next Wednesday.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will soon.
There's a few phenomena that are related to vibrations that beekeepers observe. One is any beekeeper who ever tries to cut the grass around a hive soon gets told by the bees not to do so, and can often be attacked by the bees. And I'm wondering whether that's a smell of the grass or whether it's a vibration issue. And then there's this other curious tradition about tanging, whereby people would see a swarm go past, come out with pots and pans and bang them. And very often they would report that the bees would land nearby. This could, of course, be complete coincidence. Could there possibly be something in this about vibrations transferring through the air? We've had 3 reports this year, which are very intriguing. And that's why I'm asking you the question today.
That's a very interesting question, and one I have never been asked before. And first of all, let me tell you that I don't want to comment on things I have not tried for myself. However, the mowing of the lawn I have tried, my wife has tried, and this summer my wife has been stung by my own bees when mowing the lawn. So your first anecdote, I can talk about it of prime experience, and yes indeed, it is my experience that mowing the lawn in the vicinity of bees end up in aggressivity, and my wife can talk about it. The second instance, that of tanging and the swarm collapsing upon tanging, I had never heard before. I have certainly never tried it before. I find it fascinating. I find it very interesting, and I cannot wait to try it next year. I do not know whether it's a genuine phenomenon or not, whether it's repeatable or not. However, it's very interesting. First of all, a few years ago, we thought that people playing music to plants were stupid. We thought there was absolutely no point in playing music to plants, but some people insisted and claimed that there was a point in doing so. Well, it has now been proven scientifically a couple of years ago in America, University of Missouri, that plants do pick up vibrations and sounds. And it's now, we have plenty of scientific evidence that they are receivers of vibrations and sounds. And we also have scientific proof that they react to it. Honeybees, like plants, have no eardrum. So you would think honeybees are incapable of hearing sound, even though they are very good receivers of vibrations. But we don't know. Nobody has ever asked a bee whether they hear or not. In fact, we have asked bees whether they hear or not, but nobody has ever had an answer from bees. So we'll probably never know whether bees hear or not. But I would not be surprised if they do, perhaps by means of the hair on their body, perhaps by means of their antennae. I don't know. But the question is fascinating because I am convinced that bees respond to vibrations. And I am extremely interested in measuring the vibrations of bees, but on the long term, it is certainly one of our goals to also drive vibrations into a colony. And by driving vibrations into a colony, you get the final undisputable proof of a function that you're trying to prove. So at the time, there was a scientific debate about the meaning of the waggle dance. There were some supporters and some people saying that it was not a genuine phenomenon. At that time, in 1992, Axel Mikkelsen produced a little bee robot that produced the waggle dance, and he managed to send bees wherever he wanted by means of encoding the waggle dance properly. And that was the end of the discussion. There was no more discussion about how meaningful, how genuine was Karl von Frisch's discovery about the waggle dance. So We are interested in the vibrations of these, what is their meaning, and the absolute final proof that we have understood the meaning of such and such vibration will be to drive that vibration into the colony. And the tanging is a very interesting, mysterious instance of someone driving a signal, acoustic or vibration, into a colony and getting a result from driving it. So I find it fascinating, very interesting.
Thank you, Martin. Perhaps we're in for a very noisy summer next year. Just before we go, and I'm springing this one on you, I sprung most of it on you anyway. You do a very good impersonation of a queen noise, one which we humans can hear. Would you like to sign off with that, please?
Absolutely, absolutely. Here is a queen tooting. This is a queen that has emerged from her cell. She is mobile. And the tooting is a long tone followed by pulsed tones. And she goes like this. Ooh, 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 ooh. And the pulsing can go on and on. And here is a queen quacking. She is now captive in her cell. And she quacks. It's somewhat similar to the tooting, but there isn't a long tone to start with. So here is a queen quacking. She goes quack, 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 so on and so forth, sometimes for up to 20 seconds. So here you go. There was a toot and a quack.
Thank you very much, Martin. I can verify both of those. I would have been fooled by both of those if you had been hiding behind my hive. And people will be able to read exactly what that means in the article on beecraft when you discuss secondary swarms and when those become particularly important. Martin, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure having you on, and we look forward to hearing more about your work in future.
Thank you so much. That was my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Bees, bees, hark to your bees. Hide from your neighbours as much as you please. But all that has happened to us you must tell, or else we will give you no honey to sell.